It's great to be back in Berlin and to see everyone here. Really excited to chat a little bit about stealing from Apple, how to think a little bit differently about App Store optimization and some of the methodologies that we use at Gummicube as we approach these problems. First, I just want to talk a little broadly. What does ASO really mean? Because I feel like a lot of people, particularly brands, think about App Store as where people go to find what they've already decided to download. And this is not true. 50 to 60% of people who are searching in the store have not already decided what they're going to download. They're using feature and functional terms. And this is a major channel. And if you're not taking advantage of this channel, you're not growing your market share. The App Store is not just about approaching people who already know about your app. It's about growing and finding people who haven't already decided to download your app. So the scale is really massive. There are billions of people who are searching the App Store and the Google Play Store regularly for apps. The MAUs and DAUs are pretty staggering. So it's important to think about this just like you'd think about an ad network, just like you'd think about Facebook or any other user acquisition activity that you're managing. When we think about App Store optimization, I hate the analogy SEO for apps. I say this almost every year, but I think it's important because everyone else says this is SEO for apps, and it's a terrible analogy. We think that tools that treat this like an SEO exercise are pretty much useless. The App Store and Play Store are merchandising engines. They have a lot in common with the way Amazon.com works, not necessarily a lot in common with the way web search works. And so it's important to think about that and really internalize that as you're approaching the ASO process. When we think about it, when we're looking at a client app, we look at the store literally like an e-commerce store. There are aisles. There are central bins where people have, things that are on sale, where retailers have what's on sale. And there are end caps where things that really sell well are featured. And so we think of those aisles like search results. People know specifically what they want. And so they're going there. You usually have higher conversion rates, higher intent for users. You have kind of those end caps. We think of those kind of like being featured by Apple or Google, right? Not necessarily the best conversion rates, but it's good to be featured overall. And then the central bins, which frankly are good to have, but not necessarily the best placement, are just the ad and promotions in the store, the Apple search ads, the Google ads that you might run, right? This is how we think of the store. And when you think about Apple and Google's algorithms, how they approach crawling the store and learning from the store when they try to promote your app or feature your app. We think, based on our experience, based on the fact that we focus on ASO, the most valuable users are really on the edge, right? These are users who have the highest intent and value. They're searching. They know what they're looking for, but they haven't really decided exactly what they're going to download yet, right? They're using feature and functional-based search terms, and we want to win the highest market share of these users because they have very, very high intent. And when you think about how the App Store and Play Store work, this is also how the App Store and Play Store value the data that they're gathering based on that user intent and what that indicates to them, right? There's impression data. There's click and tap data from those impressions. Search conversion rates, for example, which are different than conversion rates on your store listing. Browse and explore conversion rates. Aggregate audience conversion rates when you look at not just one keyword, but a group of keywords that are similar, where people are downloading similar things, and Apple and Google are evaluating, are you relevant to that audience, right? How do they do that? They look at the impressions and downloads and the conversion, and they use that to determine, hey, where else might your app be featured? Where might it work throughout our store? So it's really important not to think about this as which keyword is most valuable when you think about ASO, but think about it in terms of who's the audience I'm trying to target, and what are the various ways those audiences might search for the features that I have, and know that your rankings and how well you get merchandised through the store are really based on the aggregate data, or what I like to say, the aggregate nutrition that Apple and Google's algorithm are collecting to learn about your app, how it converts, and where it belongs inside their own store. We think of metadata just like a suggestion. A lot of people think, oh, I want to target this keyword, I'm going to hammer it very hard, right? But the reality is metadata is just a suggestion, right? Apple and Google are looking at what you plug in there, and they're running a giant A/B test every time you update inside their store. And that A/B test is telling them where you convert well and essentially where to potentially merchandise you across related audiences over time. The problem with a lot of tools And the problem that I have with a lot of agencies that talk this way is that it's not about what keywords you want to track. It's about understanding where Apple and Google merchandise you as you make changes on your store listing, because that tells you where they're finding you relevant inside the store. So you don't need to understand what keywords you want to track. You need to understand everywhere you appear. And this is a concept that a lot of tools don't really give you. And whenever you have an agency that says, oh, which keyword do you care most about, keyword singular, you know that they really don't know what they're doing, because that's not really reflective of how the store works. It's a lever that you have to pull. So we think it's really time to move on from the past, right? We don't understand why modern people managing App Store optimization look at data only from the center aisle of the store, right? The idea that Apple search ads data and popularity scores and what you're doing on the advertising side should really directly influence your ASO is really the cart before the horse, right? It's kind of like trying to decide what to invest in a stock market, but using data from day traders for a strategy where you're really trying to hold long and build something over a lifetime. SEM and SEO in the web are not the same thing, just like search ads and ASO in the mobile world are not the same thing. Are they complementary in some ways? Sure. But are they the same things? No. Is the data the same? No. And it's important to keep that in mind. The other thing that I think is really important to keep in mind is just relevance, right? It's different for every app. No two apps are the same. And so when you have difficulty scores that don't take into account an individual app's relevance to the keywords that they're targeting, they're not really useful, right? You want to understand, how is my app relevant to an audience, not just generally a difficulty score that for some reason a tool is applying the same way across every app. Finally, custom product pages and custom store listing. This new kind of function, that's not really new, but it's being evolved over time. This functionality proves that Apple and Google really are treating their environments like stores. They want to personalize, they want to merchandise, they're giving people new features to use, and these features are really important. And we think what we tell our customers is really the future success in the App Store is all about customization. And when you look at, in particular, what Google Play, for example, is doing with CSLs, yes, of course, you can manage languages within territories. You can fine-tune external and paid traffic. This is what people have been doing with CPPs and CSLs. But one of the things Google recently did was make it so that custom store listings can target organic keywords. And that's very important, because what that means is people who are using this will have higher conversion rates within search in the store. And that will give them a natural built-in advantage in ranking over people that are not using it, because conversion rate determines how well you rank on a keyword-by-keyword basis. So this means in the future, more work for people in order to compete with everyone else that might be able to get a little bit more customized and use custom store listings more efficiently. Now, when we think about search keywords in the context of custom store listings, right? You've been in the Google Developer Console before. You know that Google provides suggested keywords within that console. However, when you look at that console, what you have to understand is that's kind of Google in some ways telling you what's currently working for your app, where you might currently get traffic, not necessarily where the opportunity is for the app. And the challenge with that is that when you're building these custom store listings, Google is suggesting keywords that you might want to use, but that's really just based on the data they have, not necessarily where you're going. So even as you're building CSLs, that data that you're using to pick keywords for them is where you are today, not necessarily just where the opportunity is tomorrow. And we've taken a lot of surveys from our customers, and what we have found is that CSLs really still need to be adopted more in the industry. 57% of people that we have talked to that we work with haven't really used CSLs before. And with what's happening today with CSLs being incorporated, particularly in organic, it's really important that people adopt this much faster, because it's going to become a factor in why you do or don't rank well in that store. Now, when you think about how to apply this, right, we think about how to really group CSLs together, because what Google is trying to do is they're trying to create themes. So if you have a workout app, how do we have a CSL around diet focus or cardio focus or muscle focus, the specific things that people might use for your app, so a feature-based approach, and then apply that from a search perspective, right? Target those keywords, build those audiences, and increase your conversion rates for those audiences. Now, as I said, when you're building these pages, Google's only giving you the option to leverage keywords that are already in the Search Console, that they've already detected. And a lot of people, when they look at those keywords, they're thinking, oh, this is what I should focus on. Well, again, yeah, it's what you should focus on from a perspective of what you're building for CSLs, but not telling you that the job is done. It's not telling you that these keywords are the only ones that you should own in the store. They're not giving you impression data. They're not giving you opportunity data when you look at that. The reason I bring this up is because now that you do have custom store listings, a lot of people are getting more exposed to these suggestions and this data that Google does have in the console, and they're misinterpreting it by saying, oh, I'm already here. This is where my traffic comes from, and that's what I really need to focus on for growth, versus understanding where you don't already appear in the stores. So really strategize for the future when you think about ASO on what you're not seeing in the console already. Right? Do that research and understand where the opportunities are while you build your custom store listings for the keywords and the themes that are currently driving you the most traffic. So again, in terms of best practices, group your CSLs around features in the store. Make sure that, if you have a group of keywords that's important and you're targeting a certain theme, that store listing is relevant for that whole theme and it's targeting the keywords that are relevant for it. Google in this case is crawling that content for the purpose of ranking you against the right keywords. So it's just important to treat this like another ASO exercise. And we do know that, obviously this has a huge ASO impact, right? A lot of people who have been building CSLs for a while have been building them for paid user acquisition. But now you really have to think about how is Google going to crawl that content, right? What are they going to rank this for? What keywords are they going to find it relevant for? Just like you would your primary store listing, in addition to the targeting that you're doing when you build these pages. And of course, there are ways that you can measure CSL performance, right? You can go look at the listing conversion analysis page in the Google Developer Console, look at visitors, look at acquisitions, look at conversion rates, understand how these things are performing. And it's important you do that not just for your store listing, but you go and you tab around and you do it for the custom store listings that you're managing as well. When you're looking at the changes in traffic and the trends and performance here, it's important that you're thinking about all of the factors, right? Am I driving other traffic to this page? Did marketing change? Did trends change? Did keyword ranking change as I deployed this? Are people inside the store reacting from a conversion rate positively or negatively to these changes I'm making and the new store listings that they're seeing? Because what you'll notice is that deploying a CSL for paid user acquisition and how you measure it is very, very different versus when you start looking at the organic side and how people behave in the store and how it affects Google's merchandising of your app in the store. Like I said, we always talk to our customers about this. And we say, one of the things that we ask them is, well, not just are you deploying CSLs, but now that it's important for organic, how frequently are you updating them? Are you actually trying to optimize them, which is important? 63% of the respondents to this poll said, hey, we're updating a few screenshots, but only 25% are really overhauling everything. And the reason it's important to not just update screenshots, but to look at the metadata as well is every time you update that metadata, it's like a signal to Google, hey, crawl me again. Possibly merchandise me in more areas, learn more about this page so I can potentially get higher rankings or get greater visibility inside the store. So it's important to keep these updated just like you would your main store listing. We have a lot of great case studies with our customers for when we build custom store listings with them. Play to Win Casino is just one, and this was one where we're experimenting with icons within a custom store listing, in particular targeting bingo-focused icons. When we were able to do that, we were able to get a winner of almost 36% from a conversion standpoint by having an icon that focused on the keywords people were targeting in better ways. Same with screenshots, almost a 14% win when we were looking at bingo-related keywords, not just general keywords related to their app, and putting this in a custom store listing. And this impacted all of their rankings around those keywords as well, which is important. Now, this works for apps that are not just games, of course. We do a lot of work with many brands. This was a realty app that we worked with. And when we're looking at renting versus owning, finding apartments, and we're targeting the right kind of keywords within a CSL. We update the screenshots to match those keywords. We were able to improve conversion by about 12.5%, which also improved rankings for that app that we were working with in the real estate space. And if you've worked in that space, it's actually very hard to get conversion wins, right? And it's a very seasonal, cyclical space. So this can even make a difference for apps where maybe if you're running A/B testing, you haven't seen a lot of conversion wins. Well, this is a way to get some, potentially for specific audiences that you're targeting. We've done a few different experiments, in particular with this app. This is another example where we got about a 12% win. So this really works. Keyword rankings, like I said, increased as we were running this. So it's an important thing to focus on, not just in terms of what you're doing outside the store from a paid user acquisition standpoint, but now really for what you're doing inside the store. So in conclusion, never forget that the App Store and Play Store are stores. It's not like you're optimizing for the web. Data from paid search is interesting, but popularity and a lot of these metrics you get from Apple search ads aren't necessarily the right signals to make your decisions from an App Store optimization or an organic standpoint. We really do believe customization is the future. Invest time in that. It's important. And really make decisions for your long-term strategy based on where the opportunity is, not just conclude, oh, I'm being told that this is where the majority of my traffic comes from, so I'm only going to focus on that traffic, because you're not winning more market share by doing that. Thanks, guys.